presented by Mortgage Right. I'm your host, John Sarianides. And as always, I'm joined by my partners, Adam Kirkchin and Kevin Stone. Gentlemen, how are you this evening?
Good. How are you?
Oh, good. How are you guys?
Good, good.
Doing all right. Doing all right. It's where we're getting to the dog days of the off season here. This was a light content week for us. We've got a bunch of stuff coming up, of course, here in the next couple of weeks with the Patriots and camps and whatnot. But with the holiday weekend, not a lot going on in the football world. We did have a couple of showcases, which we will get into here shortly. But before we do that, and before we open the show with our customary Patriots talk, I do want to remind you that we are brought to you by Mortgage Right. If you are looking to sell your current home or purchase your first home, give Herb Devine a call, 781 254 2846, or you could shoot him an email at herb@mortgageright.com. With over 27 years of experience, Herb is the right person to help guide you through the lending process. He and his team are available anytime, including nights and weekends, to help you. Again, if you want to get in touch with Herb, his number is 781 254 2846, or shoot him an email at herb@mortgageright.com. As someone who's in the real estate business myself, having people you can trust that are experienced is paramount to the process. Herb Devine is that guy. I cannot tell you enough to get in touch with him if you're ready to enter the housing market in Massachusetts, New England, or other parts of the country. Herb is licensed throughout the East Coast. All right, gentlemen, Patriots will continue OTAs tomorrow. There is media availability. I believe Drake Maye is scheduled to speak at 11:20. Then there'll be several players that will be made available after practice, most notably Jacoby Brissett. But of course, the big news of today is first-round draft choice Drake Maye has signed. He has signed his contract with the New England Patriots. And let's start there before we preview tomorrow's OTAs. Just some thoughts on Maye signing. How important do you think it was to get this done prior to mandatory minicamp next month? Obviously, you'd have to assume it would have been done before training camp, but how important is it to get this done now? Go ahead, Stone.
I mean, fairly important. Like, he's just a kid, so I'd rather it not, be hanging over his head. And he doesn't seem like a guy who, would have haggled over money. It feels like he would have signed. I don't want to say anything because that's not the case, but you know what I mean. Like, it feels like it would have been a fairly, I guess, nice negotiation is the best way to put it. So it's good that it got done, but I wasn't too worried about it at the time.
Yeah, I think it's good that it got done, and like Kev just said, I don't think it was gonna be an issue. But anytime contracts are coming around and stuff like that, you want to get them done before it becomes an issue. And I just think it's good to have him locked up. I didn't expect him, like Kev said, to be, this huge thing. So look, he's got to go out and earn it now. They are putting him in a big position in the world. And the one thing I saw, I forget where I saw it, but Mayo was talking about supporting their quarterbacks and giving them what they need. It's important that he signed this contract. It's important that they put receivers around him that can make plays. All of it's important, and I think they're in a good spot right now.
I think it was important to get it done early, and I'm glad that it did get done. And remember now, he's going to be slotted as the third pick. There's going to be a number there that's a number that the third overall pick has made in recent years. That's probably what they used to negotiate his current contract. So he's going to be in the same neighborhood as what we've seen the last couple of years. But yeah, I think it was vitally important to get this done sooner than later. You don't want this to go into June. You certainly don't want to drag into the start of the summer. Getting it done now is big. It shows that the organization is serious in terms of getting it done, but also it shows that Maye was serious in getting it done. And of course, typically you see your other picks signed before your first round pick. Most of the other picks have signed, including Javon Baker, who signed over the weekend. You still have 3 guys left that need to sign, but this was important to get this done with Maye and get it done now. Now let's get Jalen Polk done. Now you're going to get Wallace done. Now you're going to get Robinson done. But I think getting Maye done was the most important piece here. And now that he knows that he's signed and ready to go, he can solely focus on football starting tomorrow. the rest of these OTAs, next month's mandatory minicamp, and training camp in July. That has to be a relief for him, knowing that he's gotten this out of the way now, and he can solely focus on preparing for football. Of course, he's been a man among about town, I should say, here in the last couple of weeks. He's been at Celtics playoff games. He's been at Bruins playoff games. He's been around. What do you make of that? I think it's great. I think it shows an investment on his part to get to know the city and where he's playing. But I also think it speaks to what this market is all about. And this is a close-knit market, right? The four major sports teams support each other. The coaches for years have been friends, whether it was Bill Belichick and Terry Francona or Bill Belichick and Alex Cora, Bill Belichick, Brad Stevens. We saw Belichick, even though he's not the Patriots coach anymore, at a Celtics playoff game last week. But how important is it for May to get acclimated to this area and this sports scene here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember seeing Mac Jones in any playoff games, and I could be wrong. It's how many years ago, 4 or 5 years ago now, but it's good. I think part of it is just he's a 21.
The actual number is 3, in case you're
feels
wondering.
like 5. But yeah, he's a young kid. Why not go around the town and enjoy yourself? I do find it interesting that on one of the games he's been with Polk. I thought that was kind of interesting just in terms of building that chemistry on and off the field. But yeah, it's a good thing. And again, I don't remember Mac ever kind of diving in when he was here. I could be wrong, but he seems like a likable guy. And to me, it just shows that, he can be one of the guys early on.
It seems like it's almost like when a politician stops at 3 different stops along the campaign trail, because I feel like there's an element like that
of politicking,
right? Well, it's like I feel like May kind of understands that he may not be it yet, but he's gonna be the face of the franchise, and for him to go and support these other teams, he knows fans love that stuff. And I think he genuinely just likes other sports too. I mean, he was a great basketball player. He was an elite basketball player. So I wonder if he could ever, get on the court for some one-on-one with Jaylen Brown or somebody. But
well,
no,
he did meet Jason Tatum last week, and
yeah, so
he got a jersey and everything. So
it's almost like when you're dating somebody serious and you go to meet their family. He's meeting the family this week.
Yeah, this went all over the place with you. It went from a political theme to meeting the family to
all of it.
It almost well, on a day where Robert De Niro was out railing against Trump in New York, that's kind of a De Niro plot line where you tied it all together: politics, meet the parents, and all this other stuff. Or his next movie, which will be called Raging Bullshit. Anyway, and no, but I agree. I mean, look, for me, I think this stuff is important, especially in a market like this, because I think that this is a market that the fans value, that they want their athletes to immerse themselves into the market, both professionally and culturally. And I think it says a lot about Drake Maye, but it's not a surprise. If you know anything about Drake Maye and his backstory, you talked about it a little bit, Adam. Really good basketball player in high school. Brother, of course, played at North Carolina, was on their national championship team, plays overseas in Japan. This is an athletic family, so it's not a surprise that he's at the Celtics game or that you'll see him at a Red Sox game or even the Bruins game. It didn't seem to me like he was much of a hockey fan. He didn't seem to know a lot about the game, neither did Jalen Polk. But hey, if you're going to play in this market, Bruins are big. You need to get immersed in the sports culture here, and certainly Drake Maye is doing that, although I kind of feel like this is a recent phenomenon because I don't remember Tom Brady for the majority of his career doing a lot of this stuff. Early on he did, but you didn't see him do it for most of his career. Now, of course, the Patriots do continue OTAs tomorrow. And Kevin, you wrote about this morning in regards to what are some things we can expect tomorrow. You're going to be there, of course. What are some things we can expect tomorrow?
So as we've talked about, it's still hard to get a lot out of this. It's still, a light walkthrough, kind of half speed. They'll go full speed a little bit, but 3 things in particular, it's the QB reps, and not necessarily, the throws or who completes what, but just how it gets divvied up. I'm curious to see if Bailey Zappi is still getting, a heavy number 2 reps behind Jacoby. I feel like at some point, again, I know it's early, I know it's OTAs, but I'd like to see Drake Maye and Joe Milton, or at least Drake Maye, get more than Bailey Zappi. That is, unless they plan on keeping him. Maybe behind closed doors, Zappi is pushing to be kept. So that's going to be interesting to see. Receivers as well. You don't have, Kendrick Bourne out there. KJ Osborne's new. Can Tyquan Thornton stay healthy, through an OTA? Last year, first day of OTAs, he hit the ground. We never saw him again. And then the two rookies again. What can they do? Have they improved? They didn't really get many reps either that first day. So I'm curious just to see, if they're proving themselves behind closed doors and it shows on the field in terms of reps. And then just the tempo. Again, I know it's, they're not going full speed, but I said this in the story. With a brand new regime, I'd like to think every time they're on the field, there's a sense of urgency. And I didn't feel that in the first practice. Again, it was the first practice. I get it. But those are really the three things I'm looking for tomorrow. And then the attendance again. Who's there, who's not. It feels like all the guys are on board, or most of them. It'll be interesting to see if anyone joins the group that wasn't there, or if it's the same guys. So you can't take a lot, but there are some things to kind of keep an eye on, at least I think.
At this stage, one of the things I used to look for is how guys respond to adversity. Like if a coach yells at them, or they throw an interception, or they drop a pass, or those kinds of things. They're not going to come out and be perfect. They're not going to come out and be dominant. They're going to come out and sometimes they're not even going to know what they're doing. And then, if a coach gets mad at them, what do they do that next rep? So that's kind of, the whole thing for me. I don't know exactly what they're doing each time and stuff too. I'd love to know exactly sort of how they view the playbook, how they're absorbing everything, how they're getting along with everybody else. But in terms of the main thing I'm looking for, it would be that bouncing back from adversity.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think these practices get people's attention more than we think. I mean, it made national headlines last week when Caleb Williams threw, 7 interceptions in one OTA practice. I think that what players do in these practices matters because, again, we're getting our first look at a lot of these guys, especially the rookies. So how they look early on in many ways is kind of a forecasting, if you will, of what we could see from them next month in mini camp and then in training camp. So you want to look good. You want to have a good performance, especially if you're Drake Maye, especially if you're these rookies. You want to look good. You want to look good if you're the free agents they brought in, the veterans that were brought in. You don't want to struggle early on. You want to show that you've picked up the playbook, that you understand what the coaching expectations are of you, and you can execute those expectations. So, yeah, I think these practices are important. I know that there's a lot of people that will say, whatever, who cares, it's OTAs. It's not who cares, though, because as I said last week, you're installing your base offense here, your base defense, your base special teams package. It's important that these guys know what they're doing right out of the gate so that you can add on to those things as you get into minicamp and eventually training camp when you start to build your install and increase it. So I think that coming out tomorrow and having a strong practice, I don't care so much about the pace. It's early. I care more about pace when they're in pads. I know some coaches out there might disagree with me on that. That's really a barometer of pace, in my opinion. You should practice relatively fast and in rhythm with a good flow with no pads on. But make no mistake about it, if Drake Maye comes out tomorrow and struggles, you're going to talk about it, we're going to talk about it, and everyone else that's going to be there who's charting his throws, they're going to talk about it as well. So you need to, especially when the media is there, not that you don't need to do it when the media is not there, because to your point earlier, Kevin, every practice counts, but they need to look good because, again, part of the deal here is, right, the media in this situation is a dealer in hope. If they put out there that Drake Maye looks good, the rookies are coming along, everything seems to be running well, that gives the fan base hope, and they could maybe look at this team completely different than they have. But either way, you're going to be there. As I mentioned, Kevin, Gerard Mayo is scheduled to meet with the media at 11:20. Then the team will practice, and then at around 1:30, Several members of the team will meet with the media, most notably two of the quarterbacks, Jacoby Brissett and Bailey Zappi. Are you surprised that they're not making May available on the heels of him signing his rookie contract?
No, I think it's one of those things, and I want to ask you a question about that too. Is there a chance if Zappi does get more reps tomorrow, are they just hiding him from us so we don't report that? So there's not negative stuff out there about him already?
About
Or should I
May?
answer your question? Yeah.
No, I don't think so. No, I think that this is their quarterback rotation right now. You got to remember they're installing a new offense. So the veteran guys need to learn it, and then the young guys are going to learn it as well. But the veteran guys are the guys that need to learn it first because they're going to be your starters, the majority of them. They're going to be your ones. So they're the guys that need to master this playbook
Yeah.
the quickest, if you will. So no, I'm not surprised. And look, I think if all things are equal, those are your three quarterbacks on your roster. You go with Brissett, you go with Zappi. May to start the year, and if anything, is your emergency three, and Milton is on your practice squad. In a perfect world, that's how it all shakes out. We shall see. But at least for this portion of their offseason program, I don't think they're trying to hide May. I think they're bringing him along. But I think that they want to rep those two guys first so that they get immersed in the offense.
Yeah, I'm not surprised he's not talking. He taught the first day of, well, the only day of rookie minicamp that we saw. If I'm them, keep him away from the microphones as long as you can. Let him just focus on football. So I'm okay with him not talking tomorrow.
Yeah, he'll talk about it the next time he talks. It's just like it's. I don't think it's a huge deal, but I mean, I think the way the kid has started his career here is so far. I mean, there's not a lot of like room for other stuff, but I mean, it just seems like he's gotten off to a good start. He seems to really like it here, so I'm sure he'll be positive about the contract when he talks about it.
Yeah. And here's the thing. We're going to hear from him plenty between now and the start of the regular season. There's really no need to put him out there at the end of May. It's not a big deal whether he's out there or not and answering questions and meeting with the media. At the end of the day, we're going to get plenty of opportunities to talk to him. And I think, look, the fan base is okay with that too. You don't need to hear from him on a week-to-week basis. Once it starts counting, if you will, then yeah, it'd be nice to hear from him more frequently. But again, look, if he's not the guy coming out of camp, you're probably not going to hear from him very often. So it'll all depend on how he does next month, training camp, and then what they decide to do with him. Either way, it's great to get him in the fold now. He gets that contract out of the way, and he can focus on playing football. You are watching / listening to the New England Football Show, presented by Mortgage Right. I'm your host, John Sarianides. As always, I'm joined by my partners, Kevin Stone and Adam Kirkshin. We're coming to you on this Tuesday night. Of course, yesterday was Memorial Day, so we pushed the show a day. We pushed it back a day, and it actually times out well with the Patriots and OTAs. But we are going to shift gears here now. We're going to talk some high school football. Adam, you and I on Thursday night were at the Catholic Conference Showcase. First of all, a hat tip to Al Fornaro and his staff, specifically Mark White, who did a tremendous job organizing this event. It was the first annual Catholic Conference Showcase, and I thought Coach White and that Zavarian staff did a tremendous job running this event. Adam, I'm going to start with you, just some overall thoughts, and then we can get into a couple of the players that caught our attention.
Well, I felt like one thing I liked about this and what I like about some of the other ones I've been to when it comes to showcases is they aren't so big that you get lost with how many kids there are and you don't know who to watch, and it's just all sort of scattered. And I like that both the Hockomock one and the Catholic Conference one split up, and a couple others did this too, but they split up skill players and linemen. And so if you wanted, and they did it separated by like an hour in between each, not in between, but an hour each. So it's really, you got to really see kids do more than one thing. Because sometimes like there's some events we go to where there's so many kids that you don't really know where to go. And, so I think that like this Catholic Conference one in particular did a really good job of, making it manageable for you. and manageable for the college coaches. They weren't just seeing one rep; they were saying 5 or 6 for some of these guys. So I really liked that Alan and Mark did a great job with this. Um, and again, just like in all these ones, there's talent. And it's not just talent for D1. There's talent for D2. There's talent for D3, FCS. All of it is really, it really shines. And getting a chance to talk to some of these coaches, wasn't able to get some of them on the record because they weren't sure if they were allowed to talk for this stuff. But they really liked what they saw. And there were definitely some guys there that performed well enough to get the attention of certain guys. And I thought that was excellent. That's why they're having this stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought it was well done. I thought it was organized. It was great to see the head coaches there and get a chance to talk to them. Unfortunately, we didn't get to talk to all the head coaches. Only 5 of them were there. But it was nice to get a chance to talk to them, to talk about the players that were there and how they project to this fall and what their expectations for those players individually were. And it was great to see them work out as well. It was one thing I will say, and I wrote a player piece about this. It was hard though to get around. You're trying to match faces with t-shirt numbers, and unfortunately we thought that a couple of the CM players were there that were not, because their names on the roster and the student athletes who were wearing the t-shirts matched, and we kind of went with it. I know people might say, well, you should know what they look like. Yes, I understand that, but that part of it, I think, with these showcases in general, not just this one, I think needs to be cleaned up. And I think, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to jump on my soapbox real quick, and then I'm going to jump right back off. If you're going to send your kids to this or any of these showcases, send your kids. Unless they're hurt, and even then, they should still be there. Your kids should be there. If a kid is on a roster, you should make sure that they can go to it and participate. The fact that there were guys on these rosters that didn't show up and didn't participate, it's not good for them, and it's not a good look for the program. So I think one of the things I'd like to see these showcases clean up is that if you're going to have kids that are on the roster as participants at the showcase, make sure they're there. Even if they're hurt and they're sitting out, it'd be great to talk to them. It'd be great to talk to the coaches, because for us covering these events, we want to give people the most accurate, best coverage that they could get. In order for us to do that, we need to make sure that the players that said they're going to be there are there. So we apologize. That was a mistake on my part. I thought that it was based on the numbers on the roster and the athletes that were on the field. We thought they matched. Apparently they did not. But yeah, to your point, Adam, again, I thought Coach White and the staff did a great job. I think the one thing I will say, and Stone, I want to get your thoughts on this, because I think so many people focus on the private school showcase days that we had a couple of weeks ago, whether it be Connecticut or Massachusetts. There's talent at these other showcase days as well. Adam, you were at the Hockomock one. We were both at the Catholic Conference one. There was one in Rhode Island on Friday night. There is talent at these showcases beyond the NEPSAC schools. I think that's an important distinction. We know, all 3 of us have covered the Catholic Conference. We know there's talent there.
Yeah, 100%. And I just feel like it's funny because I don't get to see many Malden Catholic games recently. I've saw them like in the early 2000s a lot more. But so some of the kids at Malden Catholic
And they look good. Matos.
Look good. And I talked to Coach Joe Gaff, and he's very optimistic about this season in terms of improving on last year's record. It was great to see St. John's of Shrewsbury there. They had some big linemen in there. I feel like you almost say, like, God, where were these guys before? But it's just they're not being shown to us in certain ways before. These guys are talented, and really all these schools have a history of having talented guys.
Look, you can make the argument that you're better off going to a Catholic conference school than a private school right now. I know we've talked about it privately, and it's
Stone, you rascal, you. Nice segue right there.
Look, it's the talent is even might be a stretch, but it's a lot closer than it's ever been. At least since I've been following it. You guys have followed it, longer than I have. But the talent gap, it's just not there anymore. And you can see that for a lot of sports too, not just football, but particularly in football. Just look at where some kids are going to school from Catholic Conference and from the private schools. It's not that big of a difference. So going back to your point about kids showing up, how much do we talk about relationship building? If you're hurt, why not show up and talk to coaches that are there?
Yeah.
Like, that's a no-brainer. If you're trying to get a ride somewhere, yeah, your talent's gonna, ultimately be the deciding factor. But these guys want to know you off the field. No showing is just a terrible look. But now obviously some kids might not be able to, or there's extenuating circumstances. But if you're a kid and you plan on going to this, show up, man, because those relationships are huge. But yeah, just in terms of the talent overall, that gap is as small as it's ever been, in my opinion.
Well, it's interesting because talking to coaches there, and they shall remain nameless, there's clearly an arms race right now in high school football between the private schools and the Catholic schools. And depending on where you live, in which part of the country, Catholic schools might be the more predominant type of school versus a private school. I think up here it's pretty even in New England in terms of private schools versus Catholic schools. But in talking to coaches, not just there last Thursday, but even at the other showcases, there's definitely an arms race right now in high school football in New England, really between all three groups, publics, privates, and Catholics. But it used to be that Catholic schools and private schools primarily took public school kids. They still are. But now you're seeing the private schools dip into these Catholic school rosters and pull kids out as well. And that's the part of it that's going to be interesting to watch here in the coming years. Of course, we saw it this offseason with Catholic Memorial quarterback Peter Bork going to Tabor, among others. It'll be interesting to see if we see more and more of this. So my next question to you guys is, are we going to see more of this? Is it going to be, because I want to kind of broaden this showcase conversation here, but are we going to see this arms race where coaches are pillaging each other's rosters here? Is this going to eventually come to a head? Is this something that's going to become the norm?
I think 100% we'll see more of it for a while, as long as it's like this, because kids from certain areas, it's like all different types of schools are competing to have their services. So I do feel like, it's funny. I feel like I talk to coaches from both private and Catholic schools that they do keep tabs on those other schools. Whatever that other school is to them, they keep tabs. And I do think that the part of seeing guys leave a Catholic conference school to a Class A prep school, like a NEPSAC school, I think you're going to continue to see that for sure. Because look, it's like they're competing for resources. You know what I mean? Like they're competing for whoever the best players are. And the funny thing is, these guys don't really face each other in the fall. They don't. You don't see Zavarian play Avon Old Farms or Brunswick play.
No, but I will say, I'm glad you brought that up. I do think there's a lot of people in the NEPSAC world, though, that want to see that.
100%.
We've been told that. Now the Catholic side of things hasn't said anything to us about it, but people we've talked to on the NEPSAC side have said they would welcome the opportunity to play some of these Catholic conference schools.
They want it because part of it is the media coverage. Catholic conference compared to the preps in terms of media, I'm not putting us in there. I'm just saying, like, the Catholic conference schools get so much more pub than like an Avon Old Farms or a Brunswick or a Choate or one of those schools. So I think it would help the NEPSAC schools in that respect. I've talked to some Catholic coaches about it, and that they would say in some circles in this that, hey, well, we can't reclass guys in the high school years. We don't have PGs. If they play without their PGs, then we'll play them. It's like, all right, well, that won't happen. And also it just doesn't fit because those Class A prep schools play like 8-9 games total. And so they start at different times. Like the Class A preps start way after the MIA schools already start. So I think something would have to happen. I could see maybe a game type scrimmage that doesn't count towards the actual game.
Yeah.
I could see something like that.
You might be able to do.
Yeah, that would be fun.
So for me, yes, I think you're going to see more poaching. It's just the way of the world right now. But I think you're going to start seeing even more showcases too. And I think the biggest reason, how much have we heard and talked to college coaches that said, you know what, the high school kids are just getting screwed. They're not getting nearly recruited. Geez, I can't even speak. Not getting recruited nearly as much as they used to. So if you're going to get noticed, you better go to a showcase and you better impress a coach somewhere, or you might be, kind of fighting for a spot somewhere. So I do think showcases are, we're going to see more of them. I'd love to see the publics do it. It'll never happen. That's a whole other conversation.
Oh
But,
no, the publics are doing it.
well, I'm saying maybe more, just more of everyone.
Well,
They're
I think
doing it,
you
but
are now. The MVC does one. The Hawks just did one. I
true.
know that the Bay State League is in talks to do one next year, next spring. I think you're going to see pretty much every public school league either do one or you're going to see leagues merge and do one.
Yeah. So I love it. And I think they ultimately need to, because kids aren't getting noticed as much. It's a transfer portal world right now. So if you're a high school kid and you're trying to get recruited, showcases are really the best way to do it. Like when we go to the Bone in Springfield in a few weeks, how many kids are there? Like, and how many colleges are there? There's an opportunity for everyone. You just need to go to the right showcases and show out. But in terms of the poaching, I don't think that's ever going to stop, especially from the publics. If you're those other two schools, if you're a head coach somewhere at a private or a Catholic conference school, being able to say, I had a kid go here, I had a kid go to Florida State or something like that, that's not only an ego boost, but it's a program booster too. So there's an image thing there that coaches are now trying to, kind of push their program and their image as well, with kids getting recruited. So it's a vicious cycle, I think, but I don't think it's slowing down anytime soon.
No, but I think the other thing to keep in mind here, though, is getting back to the showcases for a second. There's going to come a point, though, where it's going to depend on the league and whether or not college coaches, and I'm not trying to knock public schools here when I say this, but it is going to depend on the league and whether or not college coaches feel there's enough talent there that warrants that they should show up. I think that's the other part of this that's important. Rhode Island on Friday night had a showcase. There were over 25 colleges there, and while there were a lot of colleges there that could give kids opportunities, I think the one thing we got to be careful with these showcases is it too much? Is it eventually going to be too much? Is it going to be oversaturated? Here we are now talking in Massachusetts about leagues doing their own showcases. You got the showcase days. Now you got, these league and conference showcases. Eventually you're going to have statewide showcases beyond Massachusetts and Connecticut. Roger Brown, in conjunction with his organization, has a New Hampshire one this weekend. So I think they're all great. But I think the one thing we need to keep in mind here is that as important as they are, and in many ways, I think that they serve different purposes, right? From a public school standpoint, if you're a public school head coach, you're doing this to show your guys that, yeah, we can get you recruited, but you're also trying to stave off the private schools. From a college recruiting standpoint, let's be real here. You're going to go to the SAC showcases. You might send some coaches, as we saw on Thursday night, to the Catholic Conference showcase. But realistically speaking, you're probably not going to send as many to the public school showcases.
Do we lose him?
Sorry, I was on mute. Adam, going back to your point real quick, while John is apparently lost in the internet space somewhere, on the coverage for private schools, is there a shot they ever move to Friday nights? Because obviously we cover a lot of college. It's hard to get to those games on Saturdays. I think that's where the media coverage kind of lacks for them.
You know what? I feel like always the NEPSAC schools have gotten lighter coverage. There have been a couple Friday night games, the last 2 years, Milton and BB&N did Friday night games.
Yeah, they wheel the lights in, right?
And they did a really good job with them. But it's like, I think that they would rather keep doing these Saturday games but I think they do see the value in like a night game, a Friday night, a Saturday night, stuff like that. I think they want to have, and some of these it can be real hit or miss with these schools as far as atmospheres go. I've been to ISL games recently where basically nobody, there's just parents. But then I've been to other ones where it's been like big crowds, like a lot of fun. Belmont Hill has that awesome tradition of the kids standing outside that tunnel on both sides and waving the American flag. It's pretty cool. So I think those can get better. I think they are starting to see the value of being accommodating to the media and stuff like that.
Again, we are experiencing.
There he goes again.
I think that's the biggest thing, just in terms of the lack of coverage for them. Again, we're at college games on Saturdays. I feel like they could get a lot more exposure with Friday night games, but there is an element of tradition there too that I don't want them to lose. But it's just, again, I keep going back to how can we ultimately cover everybody when they're going up against college games? Like, it's so hard to kind of get to them. Johnny, you good? Nope.
For a second he was good.
We had you last week and now him.
Yeah, I know. Well, all right.
We all good?
I think we might be back. I think we're back on now. All right. Technology. Sorry, folks. Oh, wait. I may have lost you again.
We got you.
We got you.
All right. So, Adam, you were talking about lights and ISL. By the way, Jason Hogan checked in. Thanks for checking in, Jay. Keith Croft just did one at Hendrick, and that's the one we were just talking about.
Joy,
Jason,
I asked,
thank you for jumping in on that.
I asked Adam, we talk about the lack of coverage for the ISL or the knapsacks or in general. Would they ever move to Friday nights? Just in terms of, because again, we're at college games on Saturdays. There's only so much we can get to. So I feel like the lack of coverage is just, it's based on the schedule.
No, I only mean for that, like the Class A prep guy, like the teams in the knapsack, because ISL gets tons of coverage.
True.
Now
I think it could be more though.
Well, I don't know about that. Here's the thing that I think we got to keep in mind. I think the knapsack schools get a fair amount of coverage. People may tell you otherwise, but I think they get a fair amount of coverage. A lot of the schools in the Founders League and Saturday night games, so they try to give the games a primetime element. But I think we're being a little.
We all need to get our computers like done over again, Now I can't hear you.
I'm terrible at muting.
Oh, there we go.
I said it's at Foxborough Wireless down there. But yeah, what were you saying about?
No, I just feel like it's getting better and better for them. For the longest time, I don't think they really even did much to accommodate the media, but I think the knapsack in general is starting to get more and more attention.
John,
I can't hear you.
Can't hear you. All right, Adam, what's next? In terms of the showcases in general, we talk a lot about the talent just being incredible around here. The Catholic Conference, what did you see just in terms of, is it kind of stepping up another notch?
Oh, I feel like the talent in the Catholic Conference has always been good, but with this one in particular, I was really happy to see Micah Amadi from Zavarian, Brockton native. It was fun to talk to him because he's verbally committed to Boston College. He doesn't have to go to the showcase, but he went anyway, which I think is not just good for him, but it's good for the other Zavarian players that that any like FBS type schools or BC, for instance, could could be in on it. And so Mike is an interesting prospect. The thing that I love most about him is he's still 16 years old. Like, he's going into his senior year. That's crazy. You don't see that anymore that much. And he can still develop. Micah is nowhere near as good as he's gonna be in 3 or 4 years. Like he is gonna be a beast, and you can tell just by looking at him. He's getting bigger, and I think they list him right now at 6'3", 270, 265, something like that. So he's it was really good to see him. He's a nice kid, and he's acting as a recruiter of the recruiting class to BC, and he seems like a great kid.
Yeah, he's got an OV there this weekend too.
Yeah, Yep. That's great.
John, you with us? I can hear Adam talking.
I know I'm in the background. I'm in the
It's
foreground.
so weird.
Yeah, it is.
All right, I think are we back? You guys have kept the conversation going, but I do think we should probably wrap it up here. Unfortunately, we are having connection issues. I believe it's related to the stream. It's not internet related. So, any final thoughts here? We can continue this conversation next week. Certainly a fascinating conversation.
Just one for me. Belmont Hills, Tommy Rupley, speaking of the ISL, committed to Duke last week. He's joining Samson Anua. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. That is going to be a formidable defensive end crew for Duke, and happy for him. And again, it's that talent gap, whether it's Catholic Conference, whether it's Publix, whether it's the ISLs or the privates, it's closing, and there's a lot of guys who ultimately are going to join big schools here in the next few months. So congrats to him, and I'm sure there's many more to come.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Duke did a tremendous job recruiting those two kids to get both of them. Belmont Hill is a less than 20-minute drive to Boston College, and Boston College would have loved to have had either one of those guys.
Yep.
And you just got to tip your cap to Duke doing a great job of recruiting, and it's tough. I know BC wants to keep those local kids home, but you see how hard it can be.
Yeah, no question. It is challenging indeed. But as we talked to Brian St. Pierre on Thursday night, the key for Boston College, and I think we all would universally agree with this, if you want to bridge that gap in recruiting, this is a big year for them in terms of wins and losses. If you start winning at BC, especially with Bill O'Brien there now, that staff, I think you could really bridge that gap in recruiting. We do want to apologize for the technical issues. Unfortunately, it is the stream. It is not internet related. So we're hoping that Restream figures out whatever the hell's wrong with them right now. But
no. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I gotcha. Oh, John usually wraps it up. I'll do it tonight. Just stay with us as usual, folks. We have Patriot stuff coming up. Obviously, a lot of recruiting. Ton of camps coming up for every college that we cover. We cover 16 colleges. They're all running camps. So plenty of off-season stuff coming, and hopefully Restream figures it out for next week.
Good. Yep.
Anything for you, Adam?
No, just that Rupley take. So I think try to make sure you wear more sunscreen than I did, and I got burnt. And so, but yeah, it'll be good.
Awesome. Well, I hope when we X this out, the stream actually ends. But for John, Adam, I'm Kevin Stone, as you guys all know, and thanks for watching tonight. We'll see you next week. See you.